Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this really quickly.
Of course.
I think we have 20 minutes, something like that.
Sure, yeah.
I looked up really quickly, and we're the same age. I'm also 35.
All right.
Nice to meet you.
Only for a few more days for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my birthday is at the end of the week.
So first thing we like to ask is more going back to the very beginning. So what is the first time that music really entered your life on a personal level?
I was, oh gosh. I mean, it's honestly been present throughout my entire childhood. Like my mom sang in church when I was a kid, so, and my aunts all sang in church. All my uncles played guitar. All my dad and my dad's friends, they all played. So I kind of grew up with music happening around me. But I think when I was really first affected was probably going to see a live show for the first time. You know, live music just sort of like triggered something in me, and that was Sheryl Crow was my first concert. I was 13, and I picked up a guitar. Well, I picked up the drums that year. I started playing drums at 13, and then at 15, I picked up the guitar for the first time and just started learning chords and figuring out how to sing, and and then I started picking up lead later after that. But it's one of those things. It's like a slow build.
Awesome.
So.
And just, do you remember what brand, model the drum set was at 13, or guitar? Do you remember your first guitar?
The Joey Jordison Pearl, some kind of Pearl model. I think that was my first real drum kit. And I don't remember where we got it or anything, but I remember Joey Jordison was a part of it. And then my first guitar, it was this pink guitar my dad got me. It was like some Stratocaster, but somebody had built it. It didn't have it wasn't a brand, but it was like a Strat. And then I didn't really play electric guitar, so I played acoustic, so I stole my dad's acoustic and played that. But I think I had maybe it was an Alvarez was one of my first, and then when I got a real gigging guitar, it was like a Les Paul Studio. Yeah, Les Paul Studio.
Awesome. And at a young age, did you, well, first, where are you from?
I'm from Kansas City, originally.
Nice. And early on, did you know that you wanted to break out of Kansas City and go on to bigger things?
I mean, I stayed in Kansas City for a good portion of my career. I felt like, for what I was doing, I started going to shows when I was a teenager, and I started seeing wow, there's actually bands playing in clubs. There's bands touring regionally, nationally, and they're playing clubs. Like you don't have to blow up into an arena right away. You can work your way to something. And I kind of had made it my mission I was like, I'm gonna make this my business. And I started booking gigs around town, and then I'd start booking regionally. And I mean, I did want to move, and I did have dreams to venture elsewhere, but I think for me, it wasn't, I had to find the right time to do it. Because, I grew up, my family's in Kansas City, and I was touring a lot. So part of it was I don't need to move. I'm always on the run anyway. I'm barely in one place as it is. But I ended up moving to New Orleans about 8 years ago, and I really love it. I really do.
Who did you listen to early on?
I listened to rock and roll. I was really big into rock and roll. I felt like, it was kind of whatever was on the radio, where the guitar solos were. I was into that, but I fell in love with the Stones and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I love Mike Campbell, and I really dug, Guns N' Roses and all these great bands. And as I got into rock and roll, I realized that they were all my heroes, my guitar heroes were into blues. Their heroes were blues artists. So I started going backwards and, discovering about that. And also Kansas City helped because it's such a blues town, blues and jazz, historically. And I felt like, I always had a place to play because there was always something going on, like some kind of jam or a show I could go to.
And who'd you fall in love with, blues, jazz-wise?
I think the first one was probably Freddie King. And then I really got into Delta blues and more so North Hill country music. I got into R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough and like the Fat Possum roster, like C. Dell Davis and Easy Payton, and I really just kind of devoured that whole record labels roster, and just trying to discover more of those artists in that vein. And to me, it sort of married this like raw, this attitude that my rock heroes had. Sort of in a weird way, they mirrored each other.
And can you talk to me about that first band? How'd you book gigs, and what was the band like? How'd it sound?
Well, I had great musicians. I've always had really wonderful musicians. I met a couple guys in Kansas City at the blues jams, and and I wanted to build a band, and I really had no business being the sole guitar player in the band because I wasn't proficient enough, but the bank account determined I would be the sole guitar player in the band. And honestly, I'm grateful for that because it threw me into the fire, and I had to really figure out like how to fill up space and like be really confident, and how to hold that role down while singing. But the first band was a 3-piece, Paul Greenlease, Danny Montero. I had some other guys before that, but that was my first real solid band that I had for a couple of years. And then it evolved, it's evolved from trios to then like a 6-piece and then a 7-piece and then back to a 3-piece and then a 4-piece. It's always on changing.
Based on the bank account?
Not like based on the art now, which is like ideally where you want to be, but the bank account, the trio, that was the bank account move.
I'm just joking.
No, but there's very realistic standards to all of this. So.
And in terms of guitar style, what would you describe your style as?
Oh man, I don't know. It's like I'd say, it's my guitar style. Like I'm rooted in like rock and roll and blues, and I feel like that kind of colors everything I do. But really, it's just like I'm always trying to find melodies that I can return to, and I guess when creating a solo, but I don't know if I have like I wouldn't know how to quantify, verbalize what is my style.
How about vocally? Maybe some female voices have influenced you.
Got you.
Yeah,
Guitars. I would say anywhere between like I love Freddie King, I love B.B. King, I love slide players, R.L. Burnside, I love Junior Kimbrough, and I love Keith Richards. So somewhere in this world. Vocally, I love soul singers, and I loved Aretha and Otis Redding. I love Ray Charles. I love, the great blues singers, but I also have a quality to my voice when I sing softer. I pull from like different Americana and country, country influences, and and I like pop music too. But I'd say for like when I was learning how to sing, I really was tuned into soul.
Awesome. And it's one thing to learn, in school, or did you have private lessons, or, can you talk about kind of your learning process, how you got from maybe not playing guitar? It sounds like you had a musical upbringing, but can you talk about that trajectory?
So my father showed me like some chords, and he showed me, some tricks to like figure out how to lock everything together, and then I just put on the radio and tried to figure out the rest, and I've gotten a couple tips here and there from other guitar mentors and peers, and so, you pull a little bit here and there and then try to apply it to what you're already doing, and that's sort of how I learned how to play guitar. Singing is a little, for me it's a little more, like I needed a little guidance on it, because for me I can watch a guitar player and go, all right, I'm gonna steal that, but to watch a singer, it's all internal, you don't know what they're doing. So I went to some singing lessons, a woman in Kansas City. I went to her for a number of years, and then I just kind of started going down this like rabbit hole of, different videos, and just trying to like figure out what, it's all about the feeling, you're trying to tap into a feeling and an ease, and I'm still learning all the time, but and on both things, how to Like sometimes I'll unlock something new in my voice. I'm like, oh my God, it's like a eureka moment. And then it goes away, and you have to figure out how to get back to that easy, open thing. But lessons definitely help. I always encourage people who are singers to go get lessons, because you can hurt yourself, and then,
There's a right technique to it.
There really is. I mean, for guitar playing, I know that it's been stressed to me over the years that it's really important you get your technique down and, your form. But I feel like everybody's got different shaped hands, your different build. It's really about like what fits for you. And it's the same with singing. You just got to figure out what works for you and not blow it.
When in your career do you feel like, at what point do you feel like you had this breakout moment as a musician?
There's been a few positive breaks over the years. I feel like my first break was with a group called Girls with Guitars. A record label out of Germany called Roof Records was putting together something called a blues caravan. It was 3 independent artists kind of coming together to collaborate, and he needed a third person to go. And there was maybe the promise that I'd get a recording deal of my own with that same record label. And I remember being like 19, 20 years old, and I was so adamantly against it because of the name. I was like, I don't know what this is going to be like. It kind of scared me. I'd been like pushing back against, I don't want to be known, the girl is with the guitar, But my friend Mike Zito, who was producing it, he's like, you should do it because it's going to be a great opportunity for you. You're going to tour Europe, you might get a record deal, you should try it. And I did, and I'm really grateful I did because it was empowering and it was cool, and the girls I was with, they were wonderful. And it turned out to be like the first thing that happened for me that really started the ball rolling. All of a sudden when I came back to the States, there was an excitement about what I was doing that wasn't there before, and I don't know if it was the mystique of going away and coming back. But that started, and then I've had a few other really great things happen, like, And sometimes it seems small when it happens, like a video will blow up online and then you'll get an opportunity, 3 months down the line that turns into something else, that turns into something else. It's hard for me to say what was the defining thing, but it's all been, it's ups and downs, right? But for the most part, I feel like I've had some good breaks.
There's all those milestones. So what happened when you got back to the States? What was the next?
Well, I got a booking agent over here in the US, and then I just got in a van with the band for like forever and drove around thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. And, we were really just it had an exhausting schedule of, club dates and trying to build something, build off some momentum. I think another break was probably this viral video I had that a band from Canada had posted. And then I got some attention from this producer called us out of the blue and wanted to make a record with me, and that kind of started me on another trajectory. I got to open for the Stones this year. That's been one of those, like, I'm jumping pretty far ahead from, a really cool record to that, but like that's definitely one of those once in a lifetime milestone moments that, like, who knew that would even happen? That's feels incredible. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Can you rewind, talk about video and social media and just the impact that's had on your career, and I guess also what advice you'd give to artists who are looking to put their content on social media?
Yeah. Well, it's changing all the time. I feel like my advice to young artists now, it's difficult because what I did 10 years ago, I don't think that would work the same for somebody doing it now. It's like my journey was kind of, everybody's journey is unique to themselves. But I think getting in front of an audience, trying to appeal to your audience, but also learning your craft so that, when you're not making videos on TikTok and YouTube, you can go play a show when it's time to. Because there's a lot of artists that have these massive followings on social media but have never played like a show. I think you got to figure out how to do all of it, and it sounds exhausting, but I feel like that's how you get to where you're supposed to go. For me, like, video played a surprising part in it. I can tell you good things that happen with video and also bad things that happen with video, because for as many great videos there are of me and my band out there, there's some terrible ones, like, even just sound quality. People will blame they'll blame you on stage for the sound quality of a cell phone camera, you know? So I feel like sometimes they can also have a negative impact, but we live in a world now where you're accessible pretty much all the time. So if you can kind of try to figure out how to control what people see and absorb from you, that's powerful, but it's also, I think it's really difficult too, because how do you control the internet, you know?
And how do you balance the human element, you know, empathy and, you know, patience and reading all the comments, you know?
Oh, don't read the comments. Every time I read the comments, it'll like, it used to really break me down, but like every once in a while I see something that's like atrocious or mean, and it kind of fuels me in a way. I'm like, yeah, let's say some more mean. You know, like, I don't know why, it just kind of makes me mad and like gives me a little gas in the tank. You can't read, but in reality, you really shouldn't be reading the comments, because it almost has nothing to do with you, you know? I mean, whoever's commenting, you know, who knows what they're dealing with, or if it's even real, you know? Some people just say stuff to be inflammatory, and I think it's good to just, you know what you're trying to do, you know? We're trying to make art, we're trying to build on something. Try to avoid things that are going to break you down and distract you from what your goal is.
And can you talk about touring? You know, go back to touring, and do you enjoy the experience?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm a touring artist. Like I find I've been doing it so long that when I go home, I'm kind of a nut job. I'm not sure how to decompress, and no, but I do love the stage. Like my whole reason for being in this and doing this is that I fell in love with performing on stage for an audience, and that's kind of, you know, it's my whole, it's like my love, so, and my passion, so, and I love making records too, and sometimes records, like it's a piece of art that now I get to go and explore on the stage, you know, and it's exciting in its own way. But yeah, I still enjoy the touring. It can be a grind. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's good and bad to everything. You know, it's a lot of hard work. But you know, the love for that moment still exists. So that's, you know, great.
Can you talk about your compositional process? How do you write songs?
Yeah, I don't have a set method that I can tap into every single time, but I will say my most successful songwriting comes from when I have a melody that I'm like, oh, this is a hook. You know, if you can start kind of dialing in these melodies and then create stories around it. I feel like that for me is usually when I'm, you know, you're starting with the hook of the song. That's the hardest part. When I have pages and pages of poetry and I'm trying to find a place for them, it's difficult. Poetry, lyrics, whatever. But you know, I think if you can start with some kind of music and then build a story around it, that's, for me, that's gold.
And do you find that just improvising on guitar or improvising in your voice? How do you
Both,
find that?
yeah. And when I get stuck, a little trick I do, well, I'll just like go into some kind of open tuning and try to find something in there, you know, like just whatever it takes to spark, you know, creativity. So like, you know, whether it's changing a guitar, like using a new instrument that I don't normally play on, or like playing piano, I'll, you know, anything. You never know what's going to actually spark an idea, but just keep trying different things.
So beyond your recent performance opening for the Stones,
Yeah.
could you go back and maybe a live performance that really stood out to you, something?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's been so many. Like, it's hard to say there's one true standout performance. I mean, getting to open for Buddy Guy as a blues artist, like, I mean, he's a legend, and it's like just watching him do his thing is so incredible. And I think, you know, playing Jazz Fest for the first time, especially on their main stage, like in front of 40,000 people, like, was pretty wild, you know, a little like, you know, weird, but great at the same time. And, you know, but equally, I love playing sweaty clubs, you know, sweaty small clubs, or, you know, where the audience is in your face and they're like right there with you the whole time. we've played some shows like that in like Berlin and New York, and that's always, you know, super cool, very special. I love playing hometown shows for, you know, there's like an element of nerves for some reason whenever you play your hometown, but if it's a good show, it's like an elation type feeling. Those are always special. Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left, so
Sure.
I want to quickly, I guess, can I get your advice for a younger person, you know, a future music maker who is interested in pursuing a career like you've had? What advice would you give them?
Tap into what makes you unique, like what sets you apart from somebody else who's doing something similar to you, you know? And just really lean into that, because, you know, it's 2025, you know, we've all played the same notes over and over again. There's only so many in here on the guitar, on the fretboard. So like, how can you do it in a way that is like, wow, that's unique, that's different. So just spend some time, like try to get to know yourself, you know, try to, you know, be diverse, but also just follow your heart and lean into the weirdness, lean into the quirks, lean into, you know, the thing that's special, and you'll find it, because people will react, you know, when they hear you do something kind of, okay, that's different, you know.
Awesome. And how's your NAMM Show experience been?
I just got here today, so I'm a little overwhelmed. I walked into that crazy building over there, and I was like, oh wow, that's a lot. It's massive. I've never been before, but I've heard about it, you know.
Any gear you're interested in?
I'm trying not to like lose myself in there. It's a massive place, and there's so many cool things. I'm always interested in Gibson guitars and, you know, cool cases. I tried to talk to we went to Martin, and I'm sure I got to run into some guitar people over there. But yeah, I was looking at all the, you know, they just have something for everything over there.